Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is John Frassinelli, and I am a Division Director at the State Department of Education in the areas of school health, nutrition, and family services. We're very excited to have you here with us tonight. Thank you for joining us for our webinar on self-care and social emotional learning. We are so fortunate tonight to have with us our very dedicated partners from the State Education Resource Center, from CERC, our colleagues from the Connecticut Children's Medical Center, and also our dedicated folks from our State Department of Education. And so tonight, we talk a lot about schools supporting students. We talk a lot about the needs of students. Well, tonight we're going to talk about your needs and talk about your well-being, because we know that you are taking care of your families and your households and your children. And we want to make sure that we carve out some time to help you help them. This is very hard work. We understand that since the pandemic began over a year ago. We know you've been working very hard to take care of all of the things that you need to take care of and take care of your families. And so we've assembled this panel tonight to help you work through some of that. So again, thank you for joining us. And with that, I will turn it over to our colleague, Ingrid Kennedy, who will lead us through tonight's program. Ingrid?
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. It's so good to see you all. And thank you for joining us once again. And for those of you who have joined us for every single one of our sessions, welcome back. And it's definitely a pleasure to be with all of you today. We have about an hour together. And because of the topic, we're going to go ahead and start right away. So with that in mind, I'm going to make sure that we provide you with some ways in which you can interact with us today. We want this to be a session that is interactive so that you're able to ask questions. So since we are part of a Zoom, we're using the Zoom platform. By now, we all becoming masters of either Google Meets, WebEx, Zoom. Today is Zoom. So let me share with all of you how we're going to be using the feature. So you have the reactions. Right there in the Zoom bar, you will see the reactions. If you click on that Zoom bar, you will be able to provide us a reaction. So let's do a test right now. Click on the reactions little face there and give us a reaction. Thank you. I see some thumbs up.
I can't find it.
Right there at the bottom of your computer, there is
I
a
have
bar
an Android.
with different, so you're using your Android right now?
Yeah, we're using an Android.
Okay, so it is a little different on that one. So, and I'm glad that you're able to let us know. So let's see.
Press more.
Okay. So we will try to provide you some support in a minute, okay?
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So for those of you that want to, thank you for the reactions. So if we can have the next one, please. And that also in the reactions, you will be able also to raise your hand. So if you want to ask a question live, that's how you will be able also to raise your hand right there. So for those ones who are using a different type of device, it's going to be on your, right there on your side. If you see the reactions, you see the different icons. It's one of those icons. Okay. So with that said, if you want to interact and you want to put a question forward, make sure that you use your reactions. We have received a couple of questions that we will address throughout the session, but since this is going to be an interactive session, we want to make sure that also we have some questions directly from you. You can use your chat feature, and I have my colleagues Nitsa Dia and Judy Carson that are going to be collecting some of the questions and read some out loud if you do not want to read your questions, provide your questions personally live through the session today. So as John mentioned, today's topic is about self-care and social and emotional learning. It's specifically for you. So we want you today to use the expertise of our guest speakers to address your needs. And the reason that our colleagues at the State Department of Education designed this session for you is because they are very aware that everything that you are doing, either as a caregiver, as a parent, as an educator, as a family support. They are very aware of everything. This past year has been a life-changing experience for all of us, and we have become multiple things, and we were not prepared for it. And as we have gone through the year, we have been experiencing many things. So today we want you to just ask question of the experts today regarding how did you do your self-care, and how do some of their strategies can support you as we continue to move forward, and looking forward to the future together. So I'm going to start because we have received some questions. Our experts have actually prepared some strategies that they're going to be sharing with you to address some of those questions that we received directly. After that, we will open it for all of you to present your questions live or through the chat as well. So I actually would like to start with Irene Parisi. Are you ready to start with us? So let me welcome you into the space and bring your expertise into the space, and then we will have immediately after Irene, we will have Dr. Keder as well to provide his perspective. So Irene, you
Sure,
have the
thank
floor.
you. Oh, thank you so much, Ingrid. Always appreciate being able to talk with our parents, our families, and as partners in this learning experience for sure. So I've really appreciated this topic, and that this was about you, the adult learners, and what you can do for yourself. So really, I have a few slides, and I think we'll be able to share it in the chat if we want to use it, but I believe it'll be posted afterwards, right? We post some resources afterwards. Excellent. So what I wanted to share were some strategies that are manageable, just little bite-sized strategies that have helped me and my family as well. So I'm going to share my screen, so bear with me. We will be taking a quiz.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so I believe you can see my screen. I just want to be able to, I have to move things around. This is the challenge with technology, right? You try not to get too stressed out about it. So we're gonna go from the beginning. Okay, and I'm gonna move this bar down to the bottom. So this is the quiz. I want you to just, it says a couple of minutes, but I want you to really think about and self-reflect. You can write them down, or you can keep them in your head. What are your top 5 priorities in life right now in order of importance? And I put some examples here. So I'm gonna hover over this slide for a moment and do that for yourself. What are your top 5 priorities in life in order of importance? No need to share in the chat. You can keep this to yourself. So that was actually a minute. A minute's quite a long time. So Ingrid, I'm going to call on people that I know. Would anyone like to share? I don't know if Ingrid, if you wanted to share your top 5 priorities in order of importance, if you would mind. Otherwise, I can share mine.
Okay, sure. Now, I won't mind sharing. So what I put in mind was family. Then I put my husband. I put exercise. I put travel. I'm sorry. Yeah, I put travel, and then I put work.
Okay.
Travel, I just want to get out of the house for a minute. Travel to the store.
So there is research about this, so you can actually check your answers against the research that has been collected by Harvard. And you have to click. And this is what the research tells us, the big 7, that in order of importance, these should be your priorities. And I think we've heard a lot lately about sleep. Either some are not getting enough, or maybe there's too much. But I think this is an interesting, quick exercise of kind of checking yourself. I do this often for myself, so I'll use myself as an example of my priorities in order of importance. And there are moments when work is at the top. So again, I have to check myself and make sure I am getting enough sleep, enough nutrition. My family is a part of this as well. But in order to take care of others, I have to take care of myself, right? And I'll just move this up because I had this down here. Now rate yourself on your wellness, on your own wellness. A 1 from 1 being terrible, a terrible sense of wellness, or maybe 10, you are amazing. So this is just being shared as a quick strategy of saying, okay, what are my priorities today? Let me check myself. Am I taking care of myself so I can take care of others and be the best version of myself? Or are things a little tilted in another direction? The other strategy I wanted to share, I shared this with the last time we were together, and there was a lot of great feedback. I actually got some comments about it. And this is called the Pomodoro technique. And I actually do this for myself. It's a great strategy for students. I used it a lot in the classroom. Pomodoro, I mean, you can see the timer here. So it's like an egg timer, or even the digital timer on your phone if you'd like. But it's planning out your tasks, so that you're not constantly sitting in front of the screen or doing something for so long that you forget yourself and forget about your own little breaks that you need, because our work and learning models are so different now, and it varies from day to day. So the Pomodoro technique is a simple method, certainly works with students that might have some difficulties with attention, or some difficulties with transitions, or you want to feel accomplished, even as an adult learner. What can I accomplish within my 25 minutes, and then take a 5-minute break? Because if you don't do that and manage your time, you've now been sitting in your chair for 2-3 hours doing the work. So essentially it is what it is, the 3 steps. You set a timer for 25 minutes to do a particular task, and it helps you break out that task in the number of Pomodoros that you might need required for that task. So you can see in number 3, it might take 4 Pomodoros before you get a break to actually accomplish the task. But this is a self-management technique. It provides some structure too, even in an unstructured or uncertain time. So you can choose how you want to use this. It might also be helpful for you to use it with your family too. And maybe you could say, we're going to take 25 minutes of family time, and then we take a break from each other, perhaps. So again, I share this here as like I did last time, because I do believe in this strategy, which is quick and simple. And we all have clocks and timers that I think we can manage and manipulate with the number of turns for Pomodoros. And Pomodoro is another name for tomatoes. This I found incredibly helpful. And this actually comes from a book that I read. I believe I have it with me, and I can share it, and we can put it in the chat. It's called Parent Voice: Being in Tune with Your Kids and Their School. And so this is the book. I'll put the name and the author in the chat. It's a very easy read. You can see it's not very thick. And this was a strategy presented in there. Sometimes just changing the frame and how we respond to things can make the biggest difference. One of my favorite things with students, when things were just not working very well and they were either breaking down and I needed to de-escalate the situation, I always used, you have something in your teeth. And by changing the frame, they're like, what? I have something in my teeth. It would switch their attention to something else, and I could help them breathe and de-escalate. So this is my, there's something in your teeth. So I present this as, instead of listening to just one side, and this speaks to one of the questions, Ingrid, that was shared with us. Let's try understanding different viewpoints. Take that moment to do that. Instead of responding to it, try sitting with it for a moment, seek to understand, get more details, or just sit with it and that's it and be quiet, right? Instead of focusing on an individual piece of it, let's try to see the whole puzzle. Instead of being general, try being specific. I'm going to share a story that, like, with our spouses or our significant others or other adults and children in the family, that if we're just in general, we're not getting the action or the outcome we're looking for, or sometimes if we aren't very specific, we're going to escalate certain behaviors in the home, right? But this also is true when you're interacting with your teachers and your partners in the schools too. The more specific we can be, then we might get the answers that we need. And the last one is, instead of running to the rescue, try letting it unfold. This is where I think this helps us take care of ourselves. We all want to nurture our children. We all want to nurture others. But for a moment, instead of leaping to trying to fix it or rescue it, let's see how things unfold and see if people can manage or self-regulate, and things will or could work out. So this is just a strategy of, instead of let's try. I love this one. This is comes from a good friend of mine, Dr. Lori Ann Monty, and she coined this SHELT, what we shalt do. And let me move this so you can actually see it. Thou shalt take excellent care of thyself. And it means when you're sick, when you're hungry, when you're angry, lonely, or tired, you need to address those things right away. Don't let it progress. So the phrase is up here, thou shalt take excellent care of thyself. When these things are present, we need to address it, and your body tells you. So don't ignore when you're sick or hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So I'm going to stop sharing, Ingrid, because those are my quick strategies. I think it'll, I apologize. Oh, here we go. And we're back. So those are some of the strategies I wanted to share that I know that I've tested that have helped me. And really, when I saw some of the questions, that it spoke to me that maybe these are some quick things that we can do to help our own self-care and be the best version of ourselves.
Irene, thank you so much for that. Very helpful. One of the ones that caught my attention was instead and let's try. And the one that really was the last one. Instead of running, let's try it to let's let it unfold. And for me, and I can only speak personally, it's so difficult for me because I want to be able to fix it right away or address it right away. So now just trying to, so I'm going to practice that. Okay. Just trying to see what happens and be okay with whatever happened rather than running to the rescue and fixing it right away. So thank you so much. They're very helpful. So Dr. Keder, your turn, some of the things that from your perspective, we can be using as a way for self-care and focus on self first. I, me, just me for now. So thank you.
So hi, nice to see everyone, and thank you again for inviting me. It's been a year plus. We're now over the full year point into social distancing and isolation. But it's been a ride, and there have been a lot of different experiences for families. As a developmental pediatrician, I work with a lot of families and children, especially children with special healthcare needs. And I've worked with so many parents and families who are in the same position where you are. This has been an stressful year. It's been an extraordinary year, literally one for history books. That being said, what's really challenging is the first step with all of this is really recognizing that a normal stress response is to want to try to grasp on something to control. And the challenge of a global pandemic is we're trying to grasp for control where there's not always control in the way that we're looking for it. So that might mean we might try to overcompensate by double checking our child's homework, or making sure that they're really meeting each and every specific goal, or that they're not watching more than 2 minutes of extra television. And this is a real challenge. So the first thing that's really been important for me, especially with working with everyone, is setting realistic expectations, but not just for your kids, for yourself. I think that we all, as a response to stress, want to do more because it helps us feel good. We feel better when we can control things. We feel better when we can get through our checklist. But you know what? If you can get through 80% of your checklist for the day, pat yourself on the back, because this has been a long year. And I think that especially as we're trying to figure out how to get through this, most of you are doing a phenomenal job. Yes, there are going to be days and moments where you feel like you're at your wit's end, and we can talk about how to deal with that. But first and foremost, set realistic expectations and be kind. And first, be kind to yourself. This is really hard because when we have children, we are evolutionary programmed to protect them and do everything for them. That means, like, if a child's anxious, we run right in to protect them. That's normal programming. This is like having a tiger, except it's like the tiger's living with us for a year plus, and we're all hanging out and we're trying to get used to it. And, you know, maybe we're calling it friends. Maybe we're calling it Tony. Maybe he likes to enjoy some breakfast cereal with us. I don't know. But, you know, it's been really hard because we've had to learn to adapt in a lot of new ways. And this is literally what we call toxic stress in the scientific literature. It's stress that's just been there for so long. It really has an effect on our body. And, you know, I really can't emphasize enough all of the strategies that Irene just shared, right? Because ways to look at, what am I doing for me? I want you all to think of this. With social distancing, who's in your bubble? When's the last time that you passed off your child to someone else in your bubble for 5 minutes? Maybe even 10 minutes. And this is where I joke and say with families, but I really mean it. I'm not a licensed marital or family therapist, but if you have a partner, when's the last time you spent a few minutes just being with your partner, not in go mode, right? These are all really important challenges. And before we went to remote learning, if you have a child with special needs, even if you're a full-time parent, which is an awesome privilege and really important job, right? Your respite was when your child got to go to school for a little bit too. So this has been a tough year, but we can get creative. You know, first and foremost, put in a few minutes for yourself every day. I like the rule of 20. You can do a lot of things in 20 minutes. And if you can get 20 minutes to yourself, can you do 20 minutes of exercise or 20 minutes of meditation or prayer? Whatever is your own priority. Maybe it's 20 minutes of catching up on, you know, a show. Like episodes of Nailed It can be quite therapeutic, right? On Netflix or whatever it is that you want to watch. But if you can take a few minutes to unwind, that's okay. And, you know, if you're looking at your priorities for the day, maybe tonight's the night that you hold off on dishes in the sink. Or maybe doing dishes in the sink is your Zen place, and you can go there and it will help you kind of pull through your routine and get through the day. But first and foremost, take a moment and assess, because if you do a pulse check and you're feeling like, I'm in my emotional red zone, what can we do to pull down? And if your kids are trying to get into their emotional red zone, which feels like a lot these days, right? The hard part is we have to kind of pull ourselves back so that we can try to figure out how to help them. So besides being kind to yourself and realistic expectations, this is where I say it's also time to get creative. Plan for backups and surprises. I always like having an ace up my sleeve in terms of strategies when I work with kids, which means, okay, we thought of everything A through C. What's option D when we need to get there? The one that I'm going to keep backed up and never break out unless we need it. So, you know, could you plan for a rainy day and have the board game that they've never played in the closet, or a fun activity or show that you know that they're waiting to watch, but you haven't brought it up or introduced it yet? That's one ace up your sleeve. The other one is identifying an activity that's like a fun reset for the family. And full disclosure, I like music and dancing. So I like my jokingly call it break glass in case of emergency dance moment, right? If things are getting so stressful, how can we redirect that emotional energy? You know, sometimes just turning on some music and dancing can be great. You know, some kids appreciate fart jokes, and you know, that's not the type of humor that I love to do, but break glass in case of emergency, right? We do what we need to do to help pull it together. But remember, if you need a moment for you, it's hard to do that for your child. So what's your break glass in case of emergency for you? Who is your backup? This is a really important question that I didn't think about working with families clinically before the pandemic was, but who provides childcare? Who is your backup? Right? What if something terrible were to happen and like you needed to go somewhere? Like who could be there? But also, how are you helping plan times? Because before we might not have had to plan like Netflix time, right? That would have been kids are in bed time, but now you're like, ooh, what about bills and dishes time, right? But you're equally allowed to plan those things. So plan, who is your backup in your bubble? As people are getting vaccinated, plan, who's your go-to pod person that you trust with the kids, or maybe doing a little trade-off just to get some time? Or is there a family member that you feel safe with now that vaccines are out and that you can use that time together? So these are lots of different strategies, but it really is okay. It's okay to take a few moments for yourself. It's really okay to prioritize sleep. It's really okay to aim for good enough, because most of you are doing a phenomenal job and we're all going to get through this together. And then finally, not just being kind to ourselves, but this is where I admit, full disclosure, I grew up at a time where that film Pay It Forward came out and it really left an impact. But how can we be kind to one another? And I think that this is a really great reframing strategy. If somebody's complaining, or if somebody's being mean, or even if you internally are feeling irritable, that's a sign of being tired or anxious. And I know that we have this gut reaction to want to protect ourselves, but it could be a moment to pause and say, how can we be kind? How can we listen? Because maybe when my relative's calling me, they're not looking for advice. They're just looking for, yeah, it's really hard. How can we be that ear and validate? Because even here, we talk amongst ourselves as healthcare professionals. Burnout has been high this year. And, you know, we talk about medical fatigue in the medical field, but families and teachers, you are all the front line too, right? Like this is an everyone thing. Everyone is dealing with it in their own way. So, you know, how can we maybe let some of that melt down, break down some of those barriers, and just be? It's okay to not have to have a solution for everything. And some days it's okay to just be like, oh, honey, you're hangry. We're just going to call it a day. I'm going to get you some food and we're going to call it bed, right? We're done. Tomorrow's a new day. And you can do the same thing for yourself.
Thank you so much, Dr. Keder. Wow. I'm taking notes, and I'm just, just showing you my notes because there's so many things that I really need to use myself. As you mentioned, we are getting to a point in which we are in that place. So you have provided a visual. They have not thought about it as it relates to what we're dealing. And you call it the tiger in the house. And I immediately pictured this wild thing in the house. And we, every single one of us in this webinar today, trying to tame this tiger, not knowing if it's friendly or not, but we're trying to address it and trying to do everything that we can so that this tiger does not hurt us. So that visual just made me think about how urgent and how what we're going through, all of us having that tiger in the house. So thank you so much. It's just a visual for me that is putting me in many different places. So with that said, I would like to now open this space for our participants to ask questions. So a couple of things to remind you. This webinar is being recorded. So I know that you might want to ask or express things. Just be aware that it's going to be publicly made available publicly. So make sure that when you ask in your questions, you think about how you're going to ask it and what information you're going to be providing. So in order to for you to ask your questions, we're asking you to raise your hand and we will be able to call you in order so that all the those who want to ask the question have the opportunity to our guest speakers today. And also, please be conscious of the time. We want to get as many perspectives in the space as possible. So when you ask your question, make sure that it's direct, and then so that other participants can also ask questions. We also have some questions in the chat, I noticed, so I will ask my colleagues if there's a question in there, if we can bring them forward as well. So with that said, let us hear your questions to our guest speakers. So let's see, and I will monitor and see if we have any hands up. I will ask Nitsa and Judy and Greg as we monitor in the space who would like to ask a question to begin. And I will do my 30-second wait time.
Ingrid, while we're waiting, back to that concept of a tiger. I think in terms of self-care, it's also okay to decide when you need to unplug and recognize that sometimes like things like what feeds that tiger or that sense of impending like dread. And it's okay to limit yourself to what news you want. Like I admit that there's a certain NPR podcast that I limit myself to every day because the news is a lot. And recognizing that for many families, we're going through multiple layers of different pandemics going on. So it's not just social distancing that we're experiencing. It's a lot of other things as well. So it's definitely okay to unplug. But I always ask that whenever you are doing something to recharge, this is the same advice that I give to preteen boys in clinic where they say, I like playing this game, it helps me unwind. And then I'll say, well, buddy, why are you throwing the controller then, or rage quitting? And they'll say, because it helps me relax. And I'll say, really does it help you relax? So it's okay to question, like, am I getting what I'm looking for out of this? So like maybe if your go-to place is like one of those match 3 games that lets you kind of like do something, okay, do that. But if you're noticing that after a while that's not helping, like maybe pick up the phone and actually call a friend. Like remember the day where we used to talk on the phone? And you don't have to do it on Zoom. We all have Zoom fatigue. That's like a real thing. So it's okay to do that. But you know, as the weather's getting nice, go for a walk. It feels like freedom time, right? Look at, like, I'm looking out a window right now. It's time to be outside, which is really nice and exciting. So if you can, do that too.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Keder. Definitely appreciate it. Now I have Christy Leclerc. Please feel free to unmute your microphone and let us hear your question or perspective. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. We were talking about the daily checklist being too long, and I find every day my daily checklist is too long. And what I fight with is, how do I not feel guilty when I can't get to everything at the end of the day, especially when it pertains to, sometimes it comes to schoolwork. I mean, realistically, there are times where it's just too much. I have more than one child in remote, and keeping them focused and on task every day is an all day job for me, all day. And then after school is done, I give them a break, and then we get back into it again to finish up what needs to be done. And it's just like, you know, I mean, we get burnout, and I feel really guilty about that because I feel like we're constantly playing catch up. And not only the schoolwork, but I leave other things out, you know, that are undone on my list every day. So it's a constant. The next day it's a heavier load. The next day it's a heavier load. And the guilt with that is difficult for me as a mother, because I want my kids to do the best that they can, and I want to do the best for them that I can.
Christy, thank you so much for that question. So I'm going to open to either Dr. Keder or Irene, if you would like to address and provide Christy with some strategies of support.
So thank you for sharing. That's such a real question, and so many families are going through this. It's really hard, right? Because everyone's had to flip and learn new things. I think if there's a fancy buzz term for this year, everybody's had to really work on their emotional and cognitive flexibility because things just got turned completely upside down, and it's like all of a sudden, you know, we were playing poker or checkers, and all of a sudden we switched colors or turned everything upside down. That being said, managing a lot of kids for different learning, and especially when they all have different needs at home, is hard. Guilt is something that is there. It's something that drives us. And this is where I don't give specific medical advice, but I say in general, guilt is something that in normal doses motivates us. It makes us double check things. It makes us, you know, make sure that things are okay. It's hard because with this year, this level of toxic stress will force us to feel guilty because it's a form of trauma that's there every day. It is okay to feel a certain degree of it. If you are finding that it's keeping you up at night, or if you develop your internal, what I call it, guilt-o-meter or sadness-o-meter or anxiety-o-meter, and you know, 0 is like, I'm totally cool, and 10 is where it's like, this is an everyday thing. If you're living at a 4, okay, maybe you're talking with your friends. If you're starting to creep up to a 6 or 7, it's okay to ask someone for help because these are extraordinary circumstances. And I tell all my families, especially if you have a child with special needs, there's like regular parenting, and then there's parenting a child with special needs, which is like Olympic level parenting. And, you know, it's great that people like Michael Phelps and Serena Williams perform at Olympic levels, but they also get Olympic level coaches. They get supports. So here in a situation like this, I often advise families, if it's support around your child's needs, talk with your child's teacher. Teachers have been phenomenal. They're learning how to adapt and modify and do what they can. And remember, you know, there might be days where you're like, honey, we're all going to close our laptops and just call it an afternoon for now. And yes, it feels like stuff is building up, but that's because we're also dealing with this protective feeling of wanting to control and try to make sure that we're still getting through the same amount of things. That's why we want to drop back to realistic expectations as well, because, right, if we keep aiming for it, we're all going to figure out what this looks like in a year or two. And this is asterisk, I speak not as an educator in this state, right? We're going to see where kids are in terms of their performance, right? Everybody this year. This is kind of like if you watched those Avengers movies, The Snap, right? And like all of a sudden it's 5 years later, people pop back, sorry for the spoilers, right? But like we're all trying to figure out how to cope and deal. Now, coming back to your own internal meter, if you are creeping up to like 6, 7, 8, don't wait till your meter's at a 9 or 10 to ask for help. We are also experiencing a pandemic of behavioral health needs. It's been really tough. At our hospital, I can't tell you how many kids we have coming to our emergency department in crisis. And that's just the crisis, right? That's the tip of the iceberg. This level of pandemic stress, this little invisible tiger that's living in everybody's house right now, is hard. And it's okay to ask for support. It's okay, right? If we needed help with math, we would get a math tutor. If we need help with coping with our own emotions during a pandemic, we get an emotions tutor, and that's a counselor or a therapist or a social worker. And if your child needs support, good news is schools have really excellent guidance counselors and social workers right through your school district. If you want more help, you can always talk with your child's provider, pediatrician or family medicine doctor. And if it's for you, you can always talk with your own doctor, because no one should be in this alone. And I don't think anyone should ever have to get to that degree of feeling like you're losing it. But in this very general way, I would invite to say, talk with your child's teacher, right? Because, you know, trying to juggle 3 kids is your own family situation. And what the classroom might be set up for is one size fits most, but maybe there's a little wiggle room to talk and see what's reasonable. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Keder. Irene, I see that you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, let me lower my hand. Christy, when you say checklist, I just curious, are you creating an actual checklist, or is this a mental checklist?
This is my checklist that I write out every morning during coffee before I start the day. And it's always humongous.
Yeah.
And I do have regular therapy with a therapist. And so she even tells me your checklist is way too long every day. You need to knock it down. So I have been better with that. But what I find on my checklist, the majority of it, of course, is all involved around my kids' schooling. And the hardest part right now is keeping them on task and still excited about, school. And I don't know, I just think that the workload sometimes for them is a little too demanding at this time that we're going through, and it's creating a lot of pressure for all of us.
Yeah, so I wanted to offer, so checklists as an instructional strategy is, it's clear that is a strong strategy because it helps with self-advocacy, the idea of responsibility, self-regulation. So maybe you've done this, but maybe co-creating or co-designing, I don't know the age of your students, but maybe they each create their own checklist. And if they were to see what's on your checklist that you've already shared that it's more about them, what could they own on it and put on their own checklist? Now, I'm not saying that they can have an exhaustive checklist, but this helps with responsibility and self-management. If there are 3 things they could take off their checklist and be responsible for, which you probably would expect them to take care of, then they can physically say, look, this is a strategy we are all doing as a family. These are your things that you can check off and have, and instead of feeling guilty, maybe try a sense of accomplishment, right? Or this is what we've achieved today as a family. And it just changes the frame. But kids need checklists too, because for those reasons, that there's a sense of accomplishment, and it could be within that Pomodoro of 25 minutes. How many things can take off your checklist in 25 minutes and feel that sense of accomplishment and move on with my day? But I offer that as a suggestion, maybe co-creating a individual or a family checklist so that you feel like you're all in it together, perhaps.
That's a great idea. I haven't tried that yet, having their own checklist. And there are things on my checklist that they can do. So I will be
give
doing
it a
that.
try.
Thank
Give
you.
it a try.
Delegating work is a great skill to practice. And ma'am, I want to just say, amazing, go you, for taking care of yourself and asking all of these right questions, because it really does take a village. And, with a pandemic, it feels like we might need all of Manhattan sometimes. But working through this together, we can figure out what's what. We can help invite our children to learn from the strategies that we're using, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the lesson of the day is emotional self-regulation and management, or learning how to clear our own head and maybe go for a walk to refocus. But it's okay too to help prioritize, figure out what's your need to get done on the list. And then I always have the nice to haves as well. And we can always kind of do it like a priority matrix, like what is urgent and important versus what's a nice to get done. And, maybe we'll tack that on for this week if we can get to it, but there's no time limit for the moment. But really amazing job doing self-care, and your executive function skills are great. So
Thank you.
keep it up,
Wonderful.
but I will always harp back to those realistic expectations for yourself and for your child. And there are just some days where it's okay to break the glass in case of emergency.
I agree. Thank you.
So, Christy, as I can see, your question, what you have shared with us, your perspective, have generated from others a response, meaning you have asked the question that many of us might wanted to ask, and we all receiving answers and strategies. So thank you so much for asking that question and for putting your perspective in the space. Thank you. John,
Great,
I noticed that you have your hand up as well.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Irene and Dr. Keder, for your responses. And thank you, Christy, for sharing. Again, as Ingrid mentioned, many folks thinking of the same thing. I just want to emphasize Dr. Keder suggesting that you speak to your child's teacher about any and all things, because if your child is going through something and you can bring that to the attention of your teacher, then many other childs in many other classrooms are probably thinking the same thing. And what it does is it gives the teacher some insight into ways in which they can support all of their students. And I think that's important, right? It gives them an understanding on how to reach out. And also, if your child is talking about some connection with someone else in the school, that's a great inroad too. If they particularly like the school counselor, or if they're seeing a speech pathologist, or whoever that one person maybe is in the building, in the school building, that they can connect to, that's a great avenue to start a conversation, and then they can continue to have that conversation with other folks in the building about what other kids are going through to support the school environment. So thank you for sharing, Christy. I think it's great.
Thank you so much for that, John, as well. So I'm looking at the time. We have time for a few more questions. So let's see. I will ask either Judy of NITSA if we have any questions in the chat, or then if not, let's see who else would like to bring their perspective into our space. Judy, NITSA, no questions? Okay. All right. So let's see if we have any other hands up. Let's see if anybody else raised their hand. I have a couple of questions, so I just want to make sure that I'm giving you the opportunity. I can generate lists and lists of questions. So, so let's wait my 30 seconds. Okay. All right. So I have a question that it was actually submitted by, and I don't know if the person is in the space today, but let me share this question that is specifically about being able to, from their perspective, they want to support their child, son or daughter, who is in the gifted spectrum because of the different demands. So we have a student who is gifted. So how can this particular parent or caregiver provide supports to their child who's gifted, especially when they feel not motivated, so they need some social emotional learning as well? So if either one of you can just provide some supports to this parent caregiver that is concerned about their child, and how can they provide the support from that perspective?
The unmute. Okay, I
There we
couldn't grab the unmute. Yes, thank you.
Sure.
So we had this question, a similar question in our last webinar, and always appreciate it coming back, because to John's point, the communication with the teacher and helping them understand how the child is progressing, whatever the learning model might be, whether it's a hybrid or remote, fully remote, or even in school, these conversations have to happen with the teacher and the student. If they're specifically identified as gifted and having access to programming, then that's great. But oftentimes giftedness shows itself in multiple ways. So if the teacher or the family can understand what is that giftedness that they're showing, how do you provide opportunities to stretch in that area, whether it is art, it could be mathematics, and it doesn't always have to be academics. It could be musically, it could be art. So it's trying to create those opportunities and access it. Academically, oftentimes students that are that present themselves as gifted or advanced learners in the academics, try starting with the answers, because as we've said before, students generally they can get the answers quickly. They can use mental math, or they can leap to that answer. Oftentimes it's how did you arrive at that answer that seems to be most challenging for students. So I would flip the frame. So give them the answers and ask them what would be the solution to get there. What would be the steps you'd have to take to arrive at that answer? Or if you were to teach it to a sibling, or teach it to me as a parent, or teach it to another peer in your classroom, how would you teach it to them? That thinking, that kind of reverse design, is really forcing them to be analytical, to spark other skills that they normally don't, because they can arrive at an answer much quicker. And that's a strategy that is recognized by a lot of the research for gifted and talented. That's just one strategy. I mean, we could have a whole webinar on gifted and talented. What I can do is put our website in the chat. We do have a dedicated page on our website for gifted and talented, the identification of learners. A lot of it, there's kind of legal or statutory information, because that's really there for school districts. But if you want to read that information, it's available. But what is also there is the Connecticut Association for Gifted and Talented. And if you select that link, it'll take you to their website, and there's a lot of resources there that you can tap into. but it also might help you or give you ways of talking to teachers about what you're recognizing with your learners, your children in the area of giftedness, and how might you tap it or spark it. So that's a quick answer. Like I said, we could dedicate more time there, but I encourage you to talk with the teacher. Yeah, so let me find that link and I can put it there, and I'll give the air to Dr. Keder.
Thank you so much, Irene.
Thank you. And to supplement that, you know, I love working with all kinds of kids, kids with delays, kids who are gifted, but the reality is every one of us is a profile of strengths and weaknesses. And, you know, that's the condition of being human. We all have things that we're good at and that we're not good at. So this is a unique opportunity to use those strengths to help compensate. So say maybe you have a child who loves math, but doesn't love physical activity. So maybe this is a way where you can introduce something like geocaching and say like, hey, let's go outside and go on a hike, and we're going to pull out the GPS and try to find this random little box, right? Or maybe you have a child who loves football, but doesn't necessarily love reading. Well, maybe you could go to the library or go on Amazon and order a bunch of books on football. We can find a way to make things meaningful for children and kind of cross the threads a little bit. You know, it really does offer some unique opportunities. And then one of the most important things too is it's not just ever knowing the answer, right? Knowledge in of itself is easy. What we want to do is continue to encourage kids' love of learning, love of making questions, developing questions, looking up answers to questions, right? Children all start by playing, and play is like being a mini researcher. You're like, ooh, what if I do this? What happens when I do that, right? It's experimenting. So we can find unique ways to help do that. We can also find ways where kids can explore and take what they're learning in class and say like, okay, honey, well, you gave me the pretty easy version for you. What's the next level? Like, what else could you do? What could you look up? What could you tell me about how this works? Or maybe what's the next level of science related to that? And really invite the child to want to do more and try to keep sparking that interest. I think that, you know, one of the single most important predictors of kids doing well in school is that they enjoy it. They love learning. They love working with their teachers. And teachers are another great resource. They could probably say like, oh, here, parent, here's the next level for, you know, something else to do. Because it's always fun to try to teach to both sides. And, you know, gifted children are still children. They're always working on other fun things. So you can take those opportunities to even further build their skills.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. There's so much in that answer. I know today I have received so much information, and this has been wonderful. So thank you. I'm just enjoying so much as a facilitator perspective. I'm taking so much with me. So thank you. So I am being very conscious of our time. We have 2 minutes left, and I know it's beautiful outside, and talking about taking some time for ourselves. So at this time, I don't see any other hands. I don't see any hands raised, and I'm going to double check with my colleagues to see if there's any particular questions in the chat to make sure that we respect the perspectives. Okay,
No questions.
So what I'm going to ask our guest speakers is, if in closing, if you will have one kernel of wisdom today for our participants for the essence of self-care, what would you tell us? What would you like us for today to take with us? So feel free to open your microphones and give us that kernel of wisdom. Irene?
Yes, good question. I guess it's good that you didn't ask us this in advance. So this is really
No, this is impromptu.
It's in the moment. It's impromptu.
Yes.
It's in the moment. So something that I started a year ago for myself, but it's just as much for my friends. Every morning I text 2 people, whether they're friends or family members or colleagues, even former colleagues, and it's different every single day. And I send them a message, and I'll say, you know, good morning, it's the day. You know, I say the day of the week because we forget right now. But I'll say, good morning, it's Tuesday. Thinking of you. I let them know I'm thinking of them. I hope you have a fantastic day. Be amazing. you've got this, I give all those types of messages and I send it off. And it makes me feel good that I hopefully have injected some sunshine in someone's life. And they always respond back like, oh my gosh, you don't know how much I needed that. You've made my day. Thank you so much. And I've been doing that all year long, and I do at least 2 new people every day, including my husband. As he walks out the door, I tell him to be amazing. And he's like, just be quiet. But that's my own self-care, and hopefully I'm caring for others at the same time.
Irene, thank you so much for that. That's very thoughtful. Thank you. Dr. Keder?
Thank you. That was brilliant. It reminds me of back when I was in medical school, which I'm old enough to have been in medical school before smartphones. And I would actually go through my physical phone book that I had and try calling friends. And I'd rotate through my list of friends, and like every 4 months, I'd get back to the beginning of the list. So I'd talk with friends because I moved halfway across the country for school. But that's a nice opportunity. I guess my take home point is similar. If I were to use another analogy, welcome to 2020 and 2021, buckle your seatbelts. And in case of emergency, the oxygen masks might fall down. And remember, it is our own biological programming that says, I must put this oxygen mask on my child first. The reality is you might only have 2 seconds of oxygen to get your own oxygen mask on. So in order to help take care of your kids, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. And think about what is your form of oxygen. It could be texting friends. It could be doing meditation or yoga. It could be cooking. It could be doing a 20-minute Zumba workout, right? But whatever it is, make sure that you're doing it and building it in every day, because you deserve that. You owe that to yourself. And, pat yourselves on the back. We've made it here so far. We've made it over a year, right? And everyone is here because they are resilient. They're looking for resources. They're looking for supports. This is an example of a community that is here to support you. And this is coming down from the state level. Your school communities are also phenomenal too. So reach out, talk with your child's teacher, talk with your child's social worker, talk with your child's bus driver if you get to see them and wave hi as they're getting on the bus every day, right? Every person is in this. And if, we take care of ourselves and then just give that little bit of a listening ear, we're all here for each other too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll ask you if you use your reaction and help me thank our guest speakers today. Thank you so much. Your level of expertise and your suggestions were amazing. I have taken plenty of notes. With that said, I will pass it on to John so that he will be able to close us today from my perspective. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been amazing to be able to facilitate these sessions with all of you. Thank you. John?
Thank you, Ingrid, and thank you everyone for spending this hour with us. We so appreciate it. And thank you, Irene Parisi and Dr. Keder, for your sage wisdom. We will continue to think about that as it continues to resonate with us. Thank you to Judy and Greg, who are managing in the background to make this all happen and set this up. And also I want to acknowledge Nitsa Diaz, who is quietly, strategically giving some sage wisdom in the chat box and responding to folks. So thank you, Nitsa, for working that as well. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening and take time for yourself.
Yes. Enjoy the beautiful evening. Take care.